Howdy everyone, Runt9 here, and welcome to part 1 of a two-part series for Top 10 One Step from Eden artifacts. Part 2 is going to be Top 10 One Step from Eden spells, since I think they're distinct enough that I didn't necessarily want to wrap them together, but it also felt really wrong doing a Top 10 on one or the other without doing both. One Step from Eden is a roguelike deck builder with real-time, tactical, craziness combat, and definitely is going to end up on my top 10 of 2020 list at the end of the year. And it made very logical sense to me that after doing top 10 Nova Drift upgrades, that One Step from Eden would be the next target of a top 10 list, and in this case, two top 10 lists. So, I do apologize for this video coming out a little bit late. I was kind of sick yesterday with allergies and whatnot and just wasn't able to get the recording done, but I hope that you guys are still excited to watch this. I know I'm excited to record it and talk about my thoughts and opinions on some One Step from Eden stuff. And like I said in the last one, this is definitely very, very heavily opinionated and definitely also based off of my playstyle. I don't necessarily play games exactly the same way as the meta may be. So you may look at this and be like, well, that's not a good artifact, or hey, you missed this one artifact that literally everyone takes. This is purely my opinion. But I also think that that's fun, gives a good discourse and all of that good stuff. In addition, I do want to say thank you all so incredibly much for the huge outpouring of support on top 10 Nova Drift upgrades. Within 48 hours, it became the most watched video on my channel and almost hit 50 views in that 48 hours. And so, for basically every top 10 moving forward, if we hit 50 views within 48 hours of the video's release, I'm going to do a bonus top 10 that week over a non-gaming topic. So, if this, I'm planning on releasing this at 4 p.m. today, so 4 p.m. Central Standard Time Sunday. If by 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on Tuesday we hit 50 views on this video, I will release a top 10 Nightwish songs video during the week. So, if you are interested in this, definitely at the end, after you watch it, make sure you click the like button. That will help it get picked up by the YouTube algorithm and kind of get fed to more people. But that's not why we're here. We're here so you can make fun of my awful choices in top 10 One Step from Eden artifacts. So without further ado, let's jump in to number 10, Blood Money. And you're going to see that I tend to not care too terribly much about saving hostages because it's not always the easiest, especially certain deck archetypes do not lend themselves well to, especially the one where the crystal is behind the hostage and you have a short period of time. There are a lot of spells that can kill that crystal, but those spells don't necessarily fit into every deck archetype. But killing hostages is incredibly easy. You just nuke them, like you nuke every other enemy in the game. And Blood Money is one of the artifacts that gives you a benefit for killing hostages. And as bad as that may sound, money is obviously incredibly important in the game. And you figure that, especially once you get a little bit closer to the mid-game, you can easily see 3 to 5 hostages per floor. You're talking 60 to 100 money, which that right there is another upgrade for your deck. Or potentially getting a new artifact, like Blood Money, that would be beneficial to your run. So I think Blood Money, and the other thing is, talking about this list, some of these artifacts are universally good, that I would take them on pretty much any run. And unless I already have save hostage artifacts, most situations I'm probably going to choose Blood Money, unless there's just a better from the rest of this top 10, like build-defining artifact or something like that. And also, I'm not necessarily going to have a ton of legendary artifacts or spells on the spells list, simply because they pop up so rarely and require so much luck to increase the chance to see them, that this is also all kind of balanced around what are you likely to see, and how impactful is that going to be to your run on average? And I think Blood Money, if you see it, it's pretty much always an auto take on just about any run. Every run has to put out damage, otherwise you will die. You literally can't just tank through the damage and do just a teeny tiny little bit here and there. So killing hostages is a pretty easy thing to do. And getting money for killing hostages is so easy to accomplish and so beneficial in the long run. I mean, if you can get 60 to 100 money per floor from an artifact, that's incredibly good. And so I would say that Blood Money is definitely a very easy pickup on just about any run. And this is something that when Northern Lion was playing One Step from Eden, a content creator that I really, really enjoy watching, one of the things he would say a lot that people kind of started making fun of him for is agnostically good. That it's run agnostic, or it doesn't matter what build you're running, it fits in with that. And there are a couple spells on the list that, he talked about that I also agree with him on. I think Blood Money is agnostically good, that it can go and should go in pretty much any build across the board. But I think that's enough about Blood Money. Why don't we take a look at number 9, Magnifying Glass. So, Fragile is not necessarily always 100% easy to apply to enemies, but being able to make your spells do double damage is incredible. 1.5x is already good. And again, like Magnifying Glass in a vacuum may not be a super top tier artifact, may not necessarily be amazingly good in every run. But there are, even though it may not necessarily be easy to land all of them, there are so many fragile enablers in the game that even someone of, low to medium skill level, as you're learning the game, Magnifying Glass can be a huge benefit to your overall DPS, especially against bosses. And I think that adding another 50% damage under most circumstances, again, assuming you can get Fragile applied, I think is very, very powerful. The other thing is Magnifying Glass is not a super rare artifact. I see it on a lot of runs. And if you take Magnifying Glass, it's not necessarily build defining. I don't necessarily think it's agnostically good. I think there are a lot of runs where you're like, I'm never going to even attempt to apply Fragile, so it doesn't matter. I'd rather just have, X build or Y build do what it's already good at. But if there is a possibility that you are going to apply Fragile to an enemy, especially if you have the ability to stack Fragile onto a boss, Magnifying Glass is hugely beneficial. And I think that obviously everyone knows that in One Step from Eden, spell power is incredibly good and incredibly important. But the thing is, every spell power increases the power of a spell, literally, that's what spell power means, by 1. If you're doing a 100 damage spell, Fragile makes it do 150. Magnifying Glass makes it do 200. That is equivalent to 50 spell power. People like to take spell power for builds that use things like minigun and blue bullets. Minigun and blue bullets fire multiple small rounds. I think it's usually like 12 or 14 shots. And this was something that someone brought up in the last top 10, is that I tend to go off on tangents about things that are not listed on the screen, whether they be spells or artifacts or whatever the case. And last one, I would talk about a lot of other upgrades. And so anytime I try to mention anything else, I'm going to try to remember to give brief descriptions. So blue bullets and minigun both fire multiple projectiles that do a small amount of damage. So they benefit a lot more from spell power, because if each shot does 5 damage, but it fires 12 shots, you're sitting at 60 damage. By adding 1 spell power, since it's 12 shots, you added 12 damage to that shot. But if you're able to apply Fragile on hit or something like that, or you have a bunch of Fragile stacks, Magnifying Glass is better than spell power in probably, I'd say, like 80 to 90% of circumstances. And again, I think that if there's even a possibility that you're going to apply Fragile to bosses, you want Magnifying Glass. You are happy when Magnifying Glass shows up. And the vast majority of the time, I'm not going to skip over Magnifying Glass for something else, because even if I don't have a Fragile enabler, if I see Magnifying Glass, I'll find one. I'll make one. I'll do what I have to do to get Fragile applied so that I can get some double damage going. But again, I am acknowledging the fact that Magnifying Glass isn't as agnostically good as Blood Money, but I do think, and this is why it's number 9, it is more impactful on a run and easier to acquire than Blood Money, which is why it's the number 9 here. But now for number 8, and this is going right back into the same conversation we had about Blood Money, we have Soul Food. Gain 50 max HP when you kill a hostage. So again, let's go back to that average 3 to 5 hostages per floor. You're looking at 150 to 250 max HP. And whether or not you're able to heal that back is a whole other story in and of itself. But you figure if you save a boss, you get 400 HP. If you go to a campfire, I think that's usually around like 250 or something like that. I don't remember exactly how much campfire is because I tend not to rely on them too much. And I mostly am just like, it healed me, good. 50 max HP when you kill a hostage is incredible. And I definitely, like, if an artifact selection popped up and there were 3 sitting there, one was Blood Money, one was Soul Food, I would take Soul Food 100% of the time. Money is good, max HP is better. And I think the reason why I see it as better is money can buy you max HP. Max HP just flat out is something that I would potentially buy with money. Money in and of itself, having extra money, unless you have certain artifacts or weapons or abilities, spells or abilities that give you damage equal to money, money in and of itself does not make your run better. Max HP does. And that's why I think Soul Food is better. And again, because of how easy it is to kill a hostage, because of how literally every character in the game, every build in the game benefits from having a lower percentage chance of dying, who doesn't want max HP? One of my favorite pacts, which when you go to a shop, pacts are usually get 2 choices, and they have some negative and some positive. And that way it costs no money, you're just taking on the negative. There are packs that usually give you 150 max HP. You can get that in a single floor without spending a single negative by having Soul Food, and potentially more max HP. It's better than the packs that give you max HP. And I still almost always take those packs when I see them anyways. I'll remove them if I need to, depending upon whether or not I can handle the negative for a couple battles. But I love max HP because unless you are super, super quick on your reaction times and have all the boss patterns memorized, you will take damage. I consider One Step from Eden to be a balancing act between how long can you survive versus how quickly, sorry, didn't mean to hit the mic. How long can you survive versus how quickly can you kill a boss? So I like balancing increasing my damage as much as possible while also increasing my survivability to a reasonable level to match. So I like picking up easy shields to block damage so that we don't take XP, and max HP. If I'm starting at 800 max HP, boosting that max HP to 1000, super easy to do in a single floor with Soul Food. That's an increase of 25% of your max HP. That's 25% longer you're going to survive. That's 25% more time that you have to dish out your damage to a boss. Who doesn't love that? And again, it's super easy to kill hostages. And then when you combine something like Soul Food and Blood Money, where you get 50 max HP and 20 money for killing a hostage, which I have gotten on multiple runs, then you can really pop off. Just those 2 artifacts together can really give you a lot of strength to your run. And again, Soul Food here is agnostically good. There is no build in the game that does not benefit from having more max HP. And so I absolutely love Soul Food. And again, it's one of those, if I see it, unless there is another build defining artifact that is likely going to come later in this top 10, I will take Soul Food. I think it's incredible and absolutely love it. We are 15 minutes in. I have a lot to say about this stuff. I'm going to try to move a little bit quicker, but this is going to be a long one, guys. All right, number 7, Merit Badge. This goes against everything I just said about Soul Food and Blood Money, our number 8 and number 10. Because this one is when you save a hostage. Permanently gain 1 spell power when you save a hostage. I mentioned that it is more difficult to save hostages than it is to kill them. Obviously, because you usually have to deal with either taking out turrets or killing enemies on the field or defeating that crystal that spawns behind a hostage, depending upon the floor and the setup of the room and all that. But here's the thing. If you are running any of the builds that benefit from spell power, this is one of the easiest ways to stack spell power. Now, yes, I am aware that, as we talked about minigun earlier, it fires 12 shots directly in front of you and does 5 damage per shot. So each spell power adds another 12 damage to it. Even more if it's on a Trinity cast or you double cast it. Trinity casting being that after stacking up 3 stacks of Trinity, it casts minigun twice. If you add a double cast on top of that, then a Trinity casted minigun casts 4 times on a Trinity cast. That's a lot, I know. But essentially at that point, if it's firing 4 bullets for every 1 bullet normally, each spell power on that is worth 48 additional damage per cast. That's a lot. But minigun is not necessarily always good for saving hostages. So you still have to have other stuff in your deck that is good at taking out those crystals or turrets or whatever the case may be to save hostages. But the thing is, if you have a deck that is looking for spell power, you love to see Merit Badge. And again, I like to run a lot of decks that use spell power. I like to run kunai decks. I love to use kunais are free cast, deal 30 damage within 4 tiles. It's very simple and it's very easy to spam them. I love spell power because it's 30 damage. You can spam them a lot and you can just start wrapping or ranking that damage up. I love seeing Merit Badge. It's also at a lower rarity than the other 2 hostage-related ones we looked at, the ones where you kill a hostage. You see it's blue instead of purple. I don't remember exactly what the rarity levels are, but it's at a lower rarity, so you're more likely to see it. And I love seeing Merit Badge. There are so many builds that I run that spell power is just a huge increase. Anything that hits more than once, you pretty much love to see spell power. And yes, you do have to be able to enable it by being able to save hostages, but I will take 1 spell or 2 spells that I need just to enable Merit Badge to pop off, because I think it is that good at enabling certain builds that, again, I just love to see it. If you can gain 3 to 5 spell power per floor, that just seems just off the charts good to me. The only reason this is not higher is simply because there are builds that couldn't care less about spell power. If I'm casting a bunch of 200 damage spells that only cast once, adding an extra 5 damage per floor to those doesn't matter. I want money so I can upgrade and get double casts on those. I don't care about spell power. That's the only reason that Merit Badge is sitting at 7. Gotta hydrate here. So number 6, Stoplight. You want to talk about a build-defining artifact. This is at the lowest rarity level. I see this all the time. And yes, it is specific. A lot of the artifacts, a lot of the spells that I'm going to put on these top 10 lists are how useful are they on a global scale. But when there's something that is this build-defining, it has to go on the list. Stoplight is very easy to obtain, and if you are running a Trinity build, Stoplight is your holy grail. Mana Steel is it's a spell that fires, I think it's either 100 or 150 damage shot, and gives you 1 Trinity. If you have Trinity, cast this twice. So you double down on your damage by being able to shoot 2 projectiles. They're not super fast, so a lot of times if you don't have Stoplight, you cast it on Trinity, and one or both of the shots miss. If you have Stoplight, 1 second is long enough to guarantee both shots hit. That means that if you're going up against a boss, ignoring Fragile, ignoring Spell Power, ignoring everything else, if you cast Mana Steel with Trinity, you are dealing 300 damage to the boss, unless you flat out are casting it on the wrong row. If you're casting it on the right row, pointed towards the boss, you will do 300 damage. Now, we've been talking a lot about Minigun. Minigun is obviously very much helped by Trinity decks as well. Minigun does take longer than 1 second to fire, but you still get, I think, about halfway through Minigun's spellcast during that 1 second root period. Again, incredibly good. You've got, I actually forgot the name of the spell, but it's one where it fires like a 50 or 60 damage shot in front of you, not that big. But on Trinity, cast Ragnarok, which is a 350 damage, I believe, 350 damage spell that comes down and hits a single tile. 1 second is long enough to root an enemy and guarantee they're going to get hit for 350 damage. If you are running a Trinity deck, you want Stoplight. There are no exceptions. Stoplight is legitimately the single best Trinity enabler in the entire game, period. There are other good Trinity enablers, but I believe that Stoplight is the best one, because rooting an enemy for 1 second, guaranteeing that they are going to take damage from your Trinity cast, is so good that even in its niche space, it is not agnostically good. I still had to put it at number 6. Speaking of build-defining artifacts, how can I not have... It's me. How can I not have a top 10 list without Acupuncture? Kunais apply Fragile. It's incredible. Again, Kunais are a 0 damage spell that deal 30 damage, and because they cost 0 mana, you can cast as many of them as you have in your deck. There's a spell called Collect Ring that, as long as it's sitting in a cast slot, every second gives you a kunai. There are also a lot of other kunai enablers in the game, both in spells and artifacts. I love kunai decks. Shizo's alternate build is a kunai-enabled deck. It starts with Collect Ring and has his main auto attack, I guess, is auto ability, is E, or I forget what button it is on an Xbox 360 controller. Basically, you can give yourself more kunais for 1 mana. Acupuncture is, again, the holy grail of that build. And the reason why it's slightly higher than the Trinity cast build holy grail is because, to me, A, I find kunai builds more fun, and B, I think that Acupuncture is more important to a kunai build than Stoplight is to a Trinity build. There have been so many runs that I do a kunai build, and literally from the word go, I'm waiting for Acupuncture. It's just like, if we don't get Acupuncture, this build will not be nearly as successful. And when we get Acupuncture, our build, like our run, is multiplied tenfold in power. And you may be saying, well, why is it that important to add an extra 15 damage to each kunai? Let me explain how most kunai builds work. You get Collect Ring, or you have some other way to spawn a bunch of kunais in your deck. You may have 20 plus kunais saved up all at once, and then whether you root a boss or not, you can throw kunais literally as fast as you can press the button. So let's just take 10 kunais, for example. 10 kunais on a boss is 300 damage. If you apply Fragile, the first kunai is going to do 30, the other 9 are going to do 45. You can do the math. Now, again, add Magnifying Glass into the mix, and again, now your kunais are doing 60 damage apiece. And there are other enablers to that build. Acupuncture, I would say that kunai builds are subpar without Acupuncture. They are not very good at all without Acupuncture. But with Acupuncture, I think kunai builds, in my opinion, are one of the best builds in the game. Purely because of this artifact. Do you want this on anything else other than kunai builds? No. Do you want Stoplight on anything other than Trinity builds? No. But they're so build defining, they're so important to these builds that they had to be in the top 10. And for me personally, like when I'm doing a kunai build, this is number 1 in the top 10. There is no better artifact than Acupuncture. That's how important Acupuncture is. But in order to find Acupuncture on a kunai run, my favorite artifact to take before it is Goldfish. Increase luck by 15. I actually, for the first time the other day when I was making this list, checking the One Step from Eden wiki, I actually looked at the algorithm for how much luck affects drop rate. So for those of you who don't understand or don't know about the luck mechanic in One Step from Eden, basically, starting at 0, you start at 0 luck at the start of a run, you have a certain percentage chance to see certain rarity levels of artifacts and spells. So you're going to see common things more likely than uncommon, rare, epic, legendary, and I forget what the other one is. I don't remember exactly what the rarity tiers are called. Luck very quickly, I think at like 45 luck or something like that, it's either 45 or 60, you actually see rare artifacts more often than common. Luck is hugely beneficial. And the different ways to get luck in the game. I think pacts, which we talked about before, the shop, negative and positive, it's like 3 or 5 luck from a pact. Whenever you go to a campfire, there's a little bunny there. And I think if you kill it, you only gain a couple of luck. It may be like 2 or 3 luck. 15 luck in a single go is incredible. The common artifact that you'll see on level up or after boss battles or things like that is increased luck by 3. Goldfish is so incredibly huge. And yes, luck does make it more difficult. Luck increases the difficulty of enemies in various ways. I couldn't care less. If I see Goldfish, I'm taking it. It doesn't matter the run. And again, Acupuncture in the previous slide is at rare tier. This is 1 tier up in rarity. But if I see Goldfish, I'm looking for luck to make Acupuncture more likely to spawn. More likely to show up in a pack. Goldfish is so good. Luck is so important. And again, this is one that is agnostically good. I will take Goldfish like 95% of the time when I see it. Something else has to be incredibly good. It has to be like, if I'm doing a kunai run and I'm offered Acupuncture versus Goldfish, I will obviously take Acupuncture. But Goldfish is so much better for literally every other build in the game and helps enable getting you to those rare artifacts or rare spells that are so important to your build. I cannot say enough good things about the luck mechanic in the game and how important Goldfish is to that luck mechanic, that it is just head and shoulders above most artifacts in the game, which is why it's number 4 on a top 10 list out of 150 artifacts or something like that. It's hugely important. I love Goldfish. I love getting luck. I can handle the additional difficulty because I feel that I can outscale the difficulty from luck by getting better artifacts and spells. It is so important and so good. And that's why Goldfish is number 4. So we've already talked a good bit about Fragile so far in this top 10. And number 3 is probably I'm pretty sure that I don't have another Fragile style artifact higher. Mirror at legendary tier, granted, is so incredibly powerful for applying fragile. While you have fragile, apply fragile when you hit a target, gain a fragile at the start of battle. The better you can dodge, the better mirror gets. And the more ways you have to apply fragile to yourself, the better mirror gets. So yes, mirror is a high skill ceiling artifact, which a lot of these other ones are just purely good in and of themselves. Like, goldfish has no skill ceiling. I mean, it does because it makes enemies more difficult, so you have to be able to benefit from the luck by dealing with harder enemies. Mirror does have a skill ceiling. You have to be able to hold on to the fragile that you have. But if you do, the sheer amount of damage that being able to apply fragile on hit does. I'm going to keep going back to minigun, because minigun is one of the simplest, easiest to find spells in the game. You've got 5 damage per shot, but each shot applies fragile? Are you kidding me? How good is that? And again, mirror plus magnifying glass. Incredibly good. This is why, like, magnifying glass, when added to any other fragile enabler, is incredibly powerful. But that's also why it was lower on the list at that number 9. Mirror, regardless of if you have any other fragile enablers, it doesn't matter what deck you're running, mirror is good. I'm going to go back to Mana Steel. Fires that second shot on Trinity Cast. That first shot does 150 and applies fragile. So that second shot, instead of doing 150, does, 225. You just added another 75 damage to that combo. You're doing 425 instead of 350. Or 300, sorry. You're doing 375 instead of 300. Math is hard sometimes. Mirror is so incredibly powerful. Being able to apply fragile to enemies by just playing your deck the way you already would is a massive DPS increase. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Because the thing is, fragile also works with attack damage. If you're playing Terra and your basic attack is calling down a 20 damage beam to break tiles, now it does 30. Just that easy. And also, it's when you hit a target. Not when you hit a target with a spell, it's when you hit a target. So now, Terra's beamed down from the sky 4 tiles away. 20 damage, now the enemy has fragile. Hit him with a big spell. Terra's another great example. You have Excavate. Each missile from a broken tile does 20 damage. First one applies fragile. Each subsequent missile is now doing 30 damage per hit. I can go on and on. Saffron's basic attack. Yeah, it may not do a ton of damage, but you're hitting with these 2 damage shots, I think they are, constantly. Each shot applying fragile. It's so good. Mirror is incredibly good. And again, there's not a lot of legendaries on this list because legendaries are so hard to find. But if I see Mirror, I can almost not imagine a world where I don't take Mirror whenever I see it. Yes, you gain 1 fragile. Oh no, you take a little bit more damage from 1 hit from an enemy. Most of the time, I don't fear a single hit from enemies. I fear long-term multiple hits over a long period of time from enemies. My concern is losing that fragile, not the additional damage that 1 fragile on me is going to do. Mirror is hugely beneficial for every build in the game, and I'm pretty sure, I don't remember, I would have to go back and look. We'll see here in a second. I think that Mirror is the highest legendary on this list as well. It is that good. I love Mirror. And the only reason it isn't higher is not because Mirror isn't that strong, it's because these next 2 artifacts are just that good. So how about we go find out what these last 2 artifacts are? Number 2 is Ghost Costume. Invulnerability, invincibility for 7 seconds at the beginning of battle. Maybe early game isn't as crazy good, but early game is also when it's usually pretty easy to just dodge, so the invincibility doesn't matter. And maybe it's not as super useful for boss fights. But my concept with Ghost Costume is If you have Ghost Costume and you don't flawless every single room, you're doing it wrong. 7 seconds, to me, once you get even the smallest bit of your deck going, 7 seconds is enough to kill every non-mini boss room. Period. Doesn't matter what it is, 7 seconds is enough time to clear that room. So just stand wherever you have to stand, tank whatever damage you have to tank because you're invincible, and nuke the room from orbit. Ghost Costume, from a pure build enabler standpoint, enables more flawless battles. And if you don't know, the reason why flawless battles in One Step from Eden is important is flawlesses give you bonus XP. I don't have the exact number because I haven't double checked it on the wiki to double check my math, but I know that flawlessing gives you more XP. More XP means more levels means more artifacts, which means more chances to find your build defining artifacts, more chances to find other artifacts that you see on this top 10 that are hugely beneficial. Ghost Costume is the single best flawless enabler in the entire game. Spells, artifacts, characters, whatever. And flawless enablers are so beneficial to the long-term health of a run. If you get Ghost Costume early, that is a huge amount of additional XP that you're going to gain over the course of a run. Plus, 7 seconds at the beginning of a boss battle usually means one full rotation through your deck, depending upon how thick your deck is, and of just standing in one spot, following the boss, I guess, but completely ignoring whatever the boss is doing for 7 seconds to just spam them with everything you've got. For some decks, some builds, 7 seconds of ignoring having to dodge is enough time to nuke most tier 2 and 3 bosses. How good is that? Now, again, I know for a lot of builds, it may not be that much. You know, for kunai builds, you got to wait to get the kunai stacked up. 7 seconds isn't going to be enough to get there. But again, that 7 seconds of you can just work on generating kunais and not have to worry about dodging. Like Shizo Kunai still loves Ghost Costume. Go ahead, hit me. I'm going to stand here and throw kunais to myself to get stacked up to spam your face off. Ghost Costume is so incredibly powerful. And again, I know that it's not as globally useful, it's not as useful in boss fights, but the ability to flawless rooms almost constantly, because again, 7 seconds is a long time in One Step from Eden. We were talking earlier about how rooting for 1 second is good. Not having to dodge for 7 seconds is just mind-blowingly powerful. In my opinion, I think Ghost Costume should be lowered to 5 seconds because I think 7 seconds is too long. I think it is that good. I wouldn't say it's overpowered, but I do think it's right on that line. And that's why it's number 2. And with the way I'm talking about it, just like you guys saw in the last top 10, if I think it's that good, what could possibly beat Ghost Costume? How about we find out? It's Wings. It's absolutely Wings. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's Wings. So, I forgot that Wings was legendary when I mentioned Mirror. So, Wings obviously is the best legendary on this list. It is the best artifact in the game, and again, it is agnostically good. The single reason why I think Wings is the best artifact in the game, denying all of the other broken tile things that can happen, Wings makes it trivial to beat Terra. And in my opinion, even at tier 1, Terra is the hardest boss in the game. Well, hardest non-Eden boss in the game. I may be in the minority there. I'm getting a lot better at dodging Terra's stuff, but Wings counters Terra. You literally just sit on a tile that she breaks and she can't hit you. And you just have free reign to do whatever the heck you want with your deck to kill Terra. But even more than that, there are so many enemies and multiple bosses that do broken tile stuff that you can ignore. But also, if you're playing as Terra, Wings enables so many things. If you're playing a flow build, there are multiple spells that break tiles. Flow has, I don't remember the exact names of the spells, but there's one that breaks tiles on either side of you and throws those tiles for like 150 damage apiece. There's, what is it? Earth and Armor, crack adjacent tiles and give yourself 40 shield. There's so many spells that you can add to your deck once you have wings that would be incredibly detrimental to have otherwise. Because broken tiles, you cannot move around them. Or you can't move through them. You have to walk around them, which decreases your ability to dodge, makes it more likely to take damage, makes it harder to dish out your own damage. Broken tiles, there's a couple enemies that do broken tiles that makes it incredibly hard for you to land some of your 4-tile away spells, which are some of the most powerful spells in the game. Wings, just stand on that broken tile and fire away. You're good. The amount of survivability and flexibility that Wings offers is so incredibly huge. To be able to be like, I have wings, I'll just go ahead and fight Terra at tier 4 because now it doesn't even matter. She's just dead. I realize that tier 4 Terra has its own set of problems because of how she can still hit her own broken tiles again. I get it. But Wings hard counters Terra. In my opinion, the single hardest non-Eden boss in the game. Riva is up there as well because diagonal beams. But I would say that Wings hard counters Terra. It hard counters multiple different enemies. It actually works well in some of the Eden fights. I cannot say enough about how, again, Wings makes it easier to get flawlesses. It makes it easier to deal with bosses. It enables more spells that are significantly more difficult to use if you can't walk around them. I have to memorize the names of these spells, but there is a spell that after a few seconds, an entire row of the field gets broken. Well, now you can section off a part of the field and then willingly jump between it. That makes that spell 10 times more useful. The amount of things that Wings does for a run is so incredibly huge that there is no way it wasn't going to be my number one. I don't think it is that much more useful than Ghost Costume, but it is more useful enough to put it in that number one spot over Ghost Costume. It is that good of a spell. So, recapping the list, number 10, Blood Money. Number 9, Magnifying Glass. Number 8, Soul Food. Number 7, Merit Badge. Number 6, Stoplight. 5, Acupuncture. 4, Goldfish. 3, Mirror. 2, Ghost Costume. 1, Wings. And you can see the diversity in this list is kind of interesting. But you can also see the types of builds that I like running. I don't necessarily run some of the meta builds, and I definitely am like, I'm perfectly fine killing hostages. I think it's really good. And I definitely value, as you can see towards the top, ones that help you get flawlesses and help you deal with hard bosses. Because I'm never going to be perfect at dodging. If you're perfect at dodging, you basically just want artifacts that are going to increase your damage tenfold, so you just have to worry about dodging less. For me, I definitely value things that make me have to not worry about dodging as much. And that's where the top comes from. And Mirror, I think, is just such a huge increase to DPS that you don't have to dodge just if the enemies are dead. So Mirror definitely accomplishes that. I like Luck. I like Spell Power, I like Kunai builds, I like Trinity builds. There's pretty much where your top 10 comes from. And to me, it makes a lot of sense why the top 10 was put together this way. I also understand that there's going to be a lot of people out there with a lot of different opinions. I'd love to hear your opinions. Make sure you drop them in the comments section here. Or how about you go check out discord.rut9plays.com. Come join the community Discord. Let's have a discussion about it there as well. You can also discuss it with me at rut9plays on Twitter. And One Step from Eden is a very common staple over on twitch.tv/rut9plays, streaming 5 days a week, Wednesday through Sunday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Would love to have you over there. But also, the single most important thing that you can do to help out the channel is clicking the like button. That sends a message to the YouTube algorithm that says, hey, other people probably want to see this video as well. Let it get slurped up by the algorithm. And the final, single most important thing to say is part 2, One Step from Eden, top 10 One Step from Eden spells, comes out on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Central Standard, or sorry, that's going to be noon Central Standard Time. Again, this one is late. So Tuesday, noon Central Standard Time, top 10 One Step from Eden spells. Check out part 2 of this series and go figure out what you think about that list as well. And again, if this video gets to 50 views by 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on Tuesday, then I will do a bonus top 10 Nightwish songs later on this week. So help get that view count up. Share this video if you want to, but again, clicking the like button is the best way to share the video. Until that next episode, I am Rut9, and I'll see you later.